U.S. President Donald Trump seems absolutely determined to push through his Muslim ban, which he has changed to a travel ban to include countries that are not a majority Muslim. Now, this is a very underhanded kind of tactic. He's continuing his Muslim ban. He's just altering it a little so it doesn't look like a Muslim ban. He's still noting all of the Muslim majority countries, but add in ones that aren't, so that it doesn't look that way. Now, this also serves a double purpose of placing at least some kind of pressure on countries that U.S. imperialism is in a great deal of unhappiness with, the countries that they are basically in a subversive war type situation. Now, the Supreme Court did say just recently that there are going to be oral arguments made in favor of his travel ban on October 10, and they're saying that they will not hear them. Now, what this fully means is strange. It's not a ruling about the constitutionality or a final decision by the court. They're just saying that there's one-page unsigned announcement that simply removes the case from the oral arguments that are scheduled for the moment. So it really doesn't say very much, but it's something that sticks out as kind of odd. I mean, this is part of a whole complicated legal process, which I'm not an expert in law, but it seems very strange for me. Now, the new restrictions come over 8 countries: Chad, Libya, Iran, North Korea, Syria, Venezuela, Somalia, and Yemen. Now, of course, you have the many majority Muslim countries in there, but you have countries that are not Muslim majority, like North Korea and Venezuela. Now, these are also 2 countries that are currently in opposition to U.S. interests in their country, and particularly the reason, and because they are part of an anti-imperialist bloc, for however strong that it is, are opposed to U.S. foreign policy in the rest of the world. Now, this really won't do much of anything. I mean, I believe that this is really mostly just about banning Muslims from coming into the country, because Trump is, frankly, a racist piece of garbage, and that's really what this is about. But it also has the effect of also placing travel bans on Iran and Venezuela. Now, they don't overtly do that much harm to these countries, but it does make anyone doing business with these countries much more difficult. For example, the DPRK is reliant on a fair amount of tourism. Most of it doesn't come from Americans. It comes from other countries. But there is a significant portion of them that are American, and that would harm them in that way. It would also make it harder for Americans to do any business in the DPRK. I mean, there aren't very many of them anyway, but what few do carry out this kind of business, aside from the sanctions that have already been placed against the country, would make this even more difficult to do. This is almost, when it comes to North Korea, it's really just a spiteful act designed to be, just to stick it to them just a little bit. Now, this is a much different story when it comes to Venezuela. Venezuela is very reliant on a lot of investment from other countries, even some of it from the United States. There are some people in the U.S. who do have investments in Venezuela, and this would make that much more complicated because they can't go down there, actually investigate them, and see it and be a part of it. So this does harm part of Venezuela. It's also rather damaging to people who have family in Venezuela who live in the United States. They now can't really have anything to do with them now, that they can't meet up with them because there is the travel ban. So that makes the whole thing very complicated. And while this does do some kind of economic damage to Venezuela, which is absolutely has to be in retaliation for Venezuela dropping the petrodollar when it comes to the sales of oil. So, I mean, really, how much damage this can do to the countries, to the DPRK, it's not going to do very much, if anything at all. As for Venezuela, it's a much more serious piece. And of course, it should not be ignored that this is also a part of attacking Iran as well, a Muslim majority country. And many U.S. businesses and U.S. individuals have business ties to operations that are going out in Iran right now, and that complicates those even further, as we have definitely seen. Iran is being accused of violating the agreements that they had signed with Obama several years ago, but there's no actual evidence of them actually violating it. In fact, inspectors keep coming back and saying there's no nuclear weapons, no one's doing anything that they're not supposed to be doing, yet the United States is continuing to insist that Iran is in violation, which leads many people to believe that President Trump is just carrying out these actions, lying about Iran, lying about what they're doing, in order to try to get another agreement going in, one that would be even harder against Iran. What is suspected is that the current agreement that's put against them doesn't do enough damage to Iran for resisting U.S. imperialism, and this is the justification to try to create a new agreement that would put even more pressure on the country. So this travel ban is a bit more complicated than it actually appears, and this is actually attacking countries on multiple angles and has its imperialism striking out in many directions at once. But this is basically it, and this travel ban looks like it might very likely is to go through, because you cannot prove that this is about banning Muslims because of the non-Muslim majority countries that are being listed. So again, this really is a case of the president being difficult and just trying to harm people for the sake of U.S. imperialism. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.